The text message arrived at 7:42 p.m., just as I was setting down 2 glasses of wine on our mahogany dining table. I found someone else. I want nothing more to do with you. 22 words. 22 goddamn words to end 8 years of marriage. I stared at the screen, reading it again, then again. The wine glasses caught the chandelier light, casting prismatic rainbows across the table I'd spent an hour preparing. Margot's favorite roses sat wilting in their crystal vase, their petals already beginning to curl at the edges like dying dreams. My name is Elias Devereaux, and I'm a logistics consultant. I solve problems for a living. I untangle supply chain nightmares, optimize distribution networks, and turn chaos into order. It's what I do. It's who I am. But I never expected to become the problem that needed solving. I set the phone down carefully, my hands steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. The house felt different suddenly, too quiet, too perfect, like a museum display of a life that had already ended. Margot hadn't been home in 3 days. Said she was at a wellness retreat in Malibu working on her brand. Her Instagram showed smoothie bowls and sunrise yoga sessions, each post garnering thousands of likes from her devoted followers. 2 million people hung on her every manufactured moment of mindful living. I should have known something was wrong when she stopped asking about my day. Should have noticed when she started sleeping on the far edge of our king-size bed, building an invisible wall between us with her body language alone. But I was busy. My consulting firm had just landed the Morrison account, a multi-million-dollar logistics overhaul that would set us up for years. I was working 16-hour days, drowning in spreadsheets and supply chain analyses. While I was building our future, she was burning it down. I walked to the kitchen island where I'd laid out her favorite dinner, seared salmon with lemon risotto, the same meal I'd made for our first anniversary. The fish had gone cold, congealing on the expensive china plates we'd registered for but rarely used. The silence in our Brentwood home was deafening. 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, a 3-car garage filled with her Porsche, my BMW, and the vintage Mustang I was restoring. Everything perfectly curated, like Margot's social media feed. I poured myself a scotch, Macallan 18, the bottle she'd bought me last Christmas, and sat in my leather chair overlooking the infinity pool. The city lights twinkled below like fallen stars. 22 words. My phone buzzed again. An Instagram notification. Margot Fit posted a new story. I watched her laugh at something off camera, her perfect white teeth catching the golden hour light. The location tag read Santa Monica Pier. She wasn't at any retreat. She was 20 minutes away, lying to the world just like she'd been lying to me. I opened my laptop and began typing, my fingers moving with the same methodical precision I used to dissect broken supply chains. But this time, I wasn't fixing someone else's problem. I was documenting the beginning of my own solution. 3 days later, I had my answer. Julian Beaumont, 32 years old, fitness influencer with 1.8 million followers. Sponsored by protein powder companies and athletic wear brands. Specialized in transformation journeys and mindful masculinity. The kind of man who posted shirtless selfies with inspirational quotes about conquering your inner demons. I'd hired a private investigator, Bennett Security, the same firm I used for corporate due diligence. Professional, discreet, thorough. The photos arrived in a manila envelope like divorce papers. Margot and Julian at Nobu, Malibu. Margot and Julian leaving his Venice Beach apartment. Margot and Julian sharing a kiss outside SoulCycle, her wedding ring conspicuously absent. The timestamps told the story. 6 months. 6 months of deception while I worked late, believing I was building something meaningful. I sat in my office surrounded by whiteboards covered in logistics flowcharts, studying the photos like tactical intelligence. In my world, every problem had a solution. Every inefficiency could be optimized away. Margot thought she was leaving me for someone better. She had no idea she'd just become a case study in systematic destruction. My assistant Patricia knocked on the door. Mr. Devereaux, your 3 o'clock is here? Cancel it, I said, not looking up from the photos. Cancel everything for the rest of the week. Sir? The Morrison presentation is, reschedule it. I finally met her eyes. I have a new project that requires my full attention. That evening, I called Margot. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice bright and fake like artificial sweetener. Elias, how are you, babe? I'm still at the retreat. It's amazing here, really transformative. I know about Julian. The silence stretched between us like a tightrope. I could hear her breathing, could almost see her mind racing through potential excuses and deflections. I don't know what you're talking about. Nobu Malibu Tuesday night. The Venice Beach apartment Wednesday morning. Soul Cycle Thursday afternoon. I kept my voice level, professional. Shall I continue? More silence. Then quietly. How long have you known? Does it matter? Elias, I can explain. No need. I was already opening my banking app, fingers dancing across the screen. I just wanted to let you know that your credit cards have been canceled. The joint account is closed. Your car lease has been terminated. You can't do that. I just did. The prenup was very clear about infidelity clauses. My lawyers assure me everything is legal. You bastard, you can't just... I hung up. Phase 1 was complete. By morning, Margot had called 17 times. I'd listened to none of the voicemails. I was in my office by 6 a.m., dressed in my best suit, Navy Armani, the one she'd helped pick out for my biggest client presentation last year. Ironic how the tools of one victory could become weapons for another. Benoit arrived at 7 with coffee and legal documents. My college roommate had become one of LA's most ruthless corporate attorneys, specializing in hostile takeovers and asset protection. Today, he was helping me execute a different kind of acquisition. Everything's filed, he said, spreading papers across my conference table. The house is in your name only, inheritance money from your father's trust. The business accounts are separated. Her access to your investment portfolio has been revoked. And the influencer contracts? Benoit smiled like a shark, sensing prey. Interesting thing about social media sponsorship deals. Most include morality clauses, adultery, public scandal, anything that might damage brand image. Keep going. I've prepared a comprehensive package documenting her affair, photos, timestamps, location data. If she wants to play hardball, we have ammunition. No, I said, studying the city skyline through my floor-to-ceiling windows. Not yet. That's not surgical enough. I opened my laptop and showed him Julian's Instagram profile. Shirtless photos with captions about authentic living and honoring your truth. His latest post showed him meditating on a beach at sunrise, hashtagged mindful masculinity authentic self. This is our real target, I said. Margot is just following her nature. But him? He knew she was married. He pursued her anyway. He's the architect of this. Benoit raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? I'm going to give him exactly what he deserves. Recognition. That afternoon, I sent a package to Julian's management office in West Hollywood. Inside was a silver picture frame containing a professionally printed photo of him and Margot kissing outside Soul Cycle. The accompanying note read, "Congratulations to the future father. A friend." The beauty was in its ambiguity. Margot wasn't pregnant. I knew because I'd been tracking her cycle for months, hoping we might finally start the family she'd been promising someday. But Julian didn't know that. The package was designed to create doubt, paranoia, confusion. Every relationship has its fault lines. I was simply applying strategic pressure. My phone rang at 4 p.m., Margot, sobbing. "He's acting weird," she said. "He keeps asking me if there's something I need to tell him." "Elias, what did you do?" "I sent him a congratulatory gift." Seemed appropriate. "You're sick." I'm not. "I know you're not pregnant, Margot. But he doesn't know that, does he? The silence told me everything. I could imagine her perfect world starting to crack, stress lines appearing in her carefully constructed facade. "Just leave us alone," she whispered. "As you wish," I said, and hung up. But I was just getting started. The FitLife Expo was held annually at the Los Angeles Convention Center. 20,000 fitness enthusiasts, hundreds of vendors, and dozens of influencers promoting everything from protein powder to meditation apps. Julian was scheduled as the keynote speaker on day 2, discussing authentic transformation in the digital age. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd purchased a vendor booth under one of my consulting firm's subsidiary names. Officially, we were promoting corporate wellness programs. Unofficially, I was conducting reconnaissance. The expo floor buzzed with artificial energy, all bright lights, pounding music, and manufactured enthusiasm. Influencers posed with products they'd never actually use, their followers watching through phone screens like devoted disciples. Margot was there too, manning a booth for her latest sponsor, a women's activewear company called FlexFlow. She wore their newest line, a pink sports bra and matching leggings that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her smile was perfect, her poses practiced, her engagement with fans flawlessly scripted. She looked miserable. I watched from across the floor as she interacted with a young girl, maybe 16, who'd waited in line for an hour to meet her idol. The girl's eyes were bright with admiration, her questions about fitness and self-confidence delivered with heartbreaking sincerity. Margot answered on autopilot, signing a photo while checking her phone for messages from Julian. She was going through the motions of being an inspiration while her own life fell apart. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. At 2 p.m., Julian took the main stage. He looked tired, stressed around the eyes despite his perfect tan and practiced smile. The mysterious "congratulations" note was working its way through his system like poison. "Today I want to talk about living authentically," he began, his voice projected through the convention center's sound system. "About honoring your true self, even when it's difficult." The audience hung on his every word. Teenage girls held up phones to record him. Fitness enthusiasts nodded along as he preached about integrity and self-awareness. I walked to the side of the stage, where a low barrier separated the speaker's area from the main floor. Security guards stood nearby, but they were focused on the crowd, not the well-dressed businessman approaching the microphone station. Julian was mid-sentence when I stepped up to the auxiliary microphone. "Excuse me," I said. My voice cut through the sound system, echoing across the convention center. "I'd like to add something to this discussion about authenticity." Julian stopped talking, confusion flashing across his face. The audience turned toward me, thousands of eyes suddenly focused on the stranger who'd interrupted their guru. "My name is Elias Devereaux," I continued, my voice calm and professional. "I'm here because I believe in authentic living too. In fact, I think it's important that people know the truth about the man giving them advice about integrity." Security was moving toward me now, but slowly, unsure whether this was planned or not. "You see," I said, pulling out my phone and connecting it to the audio system, "my wife has been having an affair with your keynote speaker for 6 months, and I have proof." The convention center fell silent. 20,000 people held their breath as I played an audio recording. Margot and Julian discussing their relationship, planning their next meeting, laughing about how clueless her husband was. I'd recorded it during one of their phone calls, using software that corporate espionage had made surprisingly accessible. The audience erupted. Phones appeared like magic, recording everything. Julian stood frozen on stage, his face cycling through shock, anger, and panic. "That's what authentic living looks like," I said into the microphone. "Thank you for your time." Security reached me as I walked away, but there was nothing they could do. I hadn't broken any laws, hadn't threatened anyone. I'd simply shared information. Behind me, Julian's world was imploding in real time, broadcast to millions of social media followers within minutes. Phase 2 was complete. The FitLife Expo footage went viral within hours. #FitLifeScandal trended on Twitter. TikTok creators made reaction videos. Instagram stories spread the drama across millions of feeds. The fitness industry's golden couple had become its biggest cautionary tale. Julian's follower count dropped by 200,000 overnight. His sponsors, protein powder companies, athletic wear brands, meditation apps, began distancing themselves faster than rats abandoning a sinking ship. Margot fared worse. Her carefully curated image as a wellness guru and relationship inspiration crumbled under the weight of public scrutiny. Comments on her posts turned savage. "How's that mindful living working out for you? Guess you forgot to mention home wrecking in your wellness journey. Authentic transformation equals destroying marriages?" She tried damage control, posting a tearful video about personal growth and navigating difficult transitions. It backfired spectacularly. The comments section became a digital pillory where her former fans competed to deliver the most creative insults. I watched it all from my office, monitoring the destruction with the same analytical detachment I used to track supply chain metrics. Every dropped follower, every lost sponsorship, every harsh comment was data points in a larger equation. But this was just the beginning. Using my corporate investigation resources, I'd compiled a comprehensive dossier on both their business operations. Julian's income came primarily from 5 major sponsors and his online coaching program. Margot's revenue streams included 3 fitness brands, a supplement line, and her Mindful Mom course series. I began my campaign systematically, like dismantling a corporate structure piece by piece. First, I sent anonymous packages to their sponsors' headquarters. Nothing illegal, just comprehensive documentation of the affair, the public scandal, and detailed analysis of how association with them might damage brand reputation. Corporate executives live in constant fear of public relations disasters. They'd rather cut ties with a profitable influencer than risk their brand being caught in scandal crossfire. Julian lost his protein powder deal first, $300,000 annually. Then his athletic wear sponsorship, another $180,000. His meditation app partnership ended via a terse email citing brand alignment issues. Margot's sponsors moved more slowly, but the end result was the same. FlexFlow dropped her after heated board discussions about family values. Her supplement company terminated her contract, citing morality clauses. The Mindful Mom course platform removed her content, refunding customers who complained about taking parenting advice from someone who destroyed her own marriage. Within 2 weeks, they'd lost over $800,000 in combined annual income. But money was just the surface wound. The real damage was reputational. I created fake social media accounts, dozens of them, each with carefully constructed backstories and posting histories. Not to harass them directly, but to amplify existing criticism, share embarrassing content, and ensure their scandal remained trending topics. Every time the story showed signs of fading, I'd resurface it with new details, fresh angles, additional evidence. I fed information to gossip bloggers, fitness industry publications, and celebrity news sites. The key was to make it feel organic, inevitable, not like a targeted campaign, but like natural consequences of their choices. They'd wanted attention, validation, the dopamine hit of social media fame. I was giving them exactly what they'd asked for, just not the kind they'd expected. My phone rang late one evening. Margot, drunk and desperate. "Please," she slurred, "just stop." "I get it, okay? I made a mistake. I'm sorry. But this is destroying everything." "You destroyed everything," I corrected. "I'm just making sure everyone knows about it." "I loved you once," she whispered. "No," I said. "You loved the life I provided." There's a difference. I hung up and returned to my work. Phase 3 was ahead of schedule. 3 weeks after the Expo incident, I received an unexpected visitor. Julian Beaumont sat in my office's waiting room, looking like a man who'd aged 5 years in a month. His famous tan had faded to a sickly pallor. Dark circles ringed his eyes. The confident posture that had made him Instagram famous was replaced by the hunched shoulders of defeat. Patricia announced his arrival with barely concealed curiosity. The fitness guru requesting a meeting with the wronged husband was exactly the kind of drama that would fuel office gossip for months. "Send him in," I said. Julian entered my office like he was walking to his execution. He wore expensive clothes, designer jeans, a leather jacket that probably cost $3,000, but they hung on him like costumes for a role he could no longer play. "Nice office," he said, trying to project his old confidence. "Guess corporate consulting pays better than I thought." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "What can I do for you, Julian?" He sat down heavily, his hands fidgeting with his phone. "You can stop." "Stop what?" "Don't play dumb. You've been systematically destroying our lives for weeks. The expo thing was just the beginning." I leaned back in my chair, studying him like a specimen under a microscope. "You're giving me too much credit. I didn't make you sleep with my wife. I didn't force you to betray your own stated values about authentic living. I just made sure people knew about it." "Bullshit." His voice cracked slightly. "The sponsors didn't just randomly decide to drop us. Someone fed them information, convinced them we were toxic to their brands." "Are you saying the information was false?" "No, but then what's the problem? I thought you believed in living authentically." He stood up abruptly, pacing to my windows overlooking downtown LA. "I lost everything. My sponsorships, my coaching business, my apartment lease. The landlord terminated it because of the media attention. I'm sleeping on my brother's couch. That sounds like consequences. I made a mistake, okay? I fell for her. I didn't mean for it to happen." I laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You didn't mean to pursue a married woman for 6 months? You didn't mean to build an entire relationship based on deception? You didn't mean to sleep with her in my bed while I was working to support the life you were helping her destroy?" He spun around, his face flushing with anger. "She told me you two were getting divorced. She said you were cold, that you ignored her, that the marriage was already over." "And you believed her?" "Why wouldn't I?" "Because she was still wearing her wedding ring. Because she never filed divorce papers. Because she was still living in my house, using my credit cards, driving the car I paid for." I stood up slowly, my voice never rising above conversational level. "Because if a woman will cheat with you, she'll lie to you." The fight went out of him like air from a punctured tire. He slumped against the window, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "I want you to understand something," I said. "You didn't just sleep with my wife. You helped her destroy 8 years of marriage. You participated in turning me into a fool, a laughingstock, a man so pathetic that his wife preferred an Instagram influencer who posts shirtless photos with motivational quotes." "I'm sorry." "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there were consequences. You're sorry your perfect life imploded." I walked around my desk, stopping a few feet from him. "But you're not sorry for what you did." He met my eyes for the first time since entering my office. "You're right. I'm not sorry I fell in love with her." "Love?" I smiled, and he actually stepped backward. "You think this was love? What else would you call it?" "A transaction. She wanted validation, excitement, someone who would tell her she was special. You wanted to feel powerful, to prove you could take another man's wife. It was never about love. You don't know what you're talking about. I know she's already looking for your replacement." The color drained from his face. "What?" I pulled out my phone and showed him screenshots from Margot's private messages, conversations with another fitness influencer, a younger man named Blake who specialized in masculine wellness coaching. "She contacted him yesterday," I said. "Apparently damaged goods aren't as appealing as she'd hoped." Julian stared at the messages like they were written in a foreign language. I watched the realization hit him in real time. He wasn't special. He wasn't the love of her life. He was just another item in Margot's endless quest for novelty and excitement. "She's leaving me," he whispered. "She already left you. You just haven't figured it out yet." He looked up at me, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "You planned this. You knew she'd do this. I know my wife better than you do. She's not capable of loving anyone more than herself. You were useful while you were successful, exciting while you were forbidden. Now you're just another failed influencer living on his brother's couch. So what happens now?" I walked back to my desk and sat down, returning to my work like he'd already ceased to exist. "Now you disappear. You leave LA, find a new career, start over somewhere else, and you never contact her again." "And if I don't?" I looked up from my computer, my expression unchanged. "Then Phase 4 begins." He didn't ask what Phase 4 entailed. He just nodded and walked toward the door. "Julian," I called as he reached for the handle. "There's one more thing." He turned back. "If you ever tell this story to anyone, if you try to make yourself the victim, if you write a tell-all blog post, if you do anything to portray this as some kind of tragic love story, I will make the last month look like a vacation." He opened his mouth to respond, then thought better of it. The door closed behind him with a soft click. I returned to my spreadsheets, but my mind was already moving to the next phase. Margot still thought she could salvage something from this wreckage. She was about to learn otherwise. I found Margot at Runyon Canyon, her old hiking spot where she used to film Motivation Monday videos for her followers. She was sitting alone on a bench, staring out at the city skyline without her usual phone in hand. She looked different. Smaller somehow, like the public humiliation had physically shrunk her. Her famous blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup, no designer workout clothes, just jeans and a plain t-shirt. For the first time in years, she looked like the woman I'd married. "Hello, Margot." She turned, unsurprised, like she'd been expecting me to find her eventually. "Elias." Her voice was hoarse, tired. "I suppose you're here to gloat." I sat down beside her on the bench, maintaining careful distance. "Actually, I'm here to talk." "About what? How you destroyed my life? How you systematically dismantled everything I'd built?" "About what comes next." She laughed bitterly. "There is no next. I have nothing left. No sponsors, no followers who don't hate me, no career. Even Blake won't return my calls." "You know about Blake?" "Julian told me you showed him the messages." She looked at me with something that might have been respect. "You really did think of everything, didn't you?" "It wasn't personal, Margot. It was just logical, cause and effect, actions and consequences." "Not personal?" Her voice rose for the first time. "You made it personal when you decided to destroy my entire life instead of just divorcing me like a normal person. A normal divorce would have given you half of everything. You'd have walked away with millions, started over somewhere else, rebuilt your brand as the strong woman who left her boring husband for true love. You'd have spun it into another chapter of your inspiring journey. So instead, you made sure I'd have nothing. I made sure you'd have exactly what you earned." We sat in silence for several minutes, watching joggers and dog walkers navigate the trails below us. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that would have made perfect Instagram content in another life. "Julian's leaving LA," she said finally. "I know." He asked me to come with him. And I said no. She turned to look at me directly. "Do you want to know why?" "Tell me." "Because I realized something during all this. I never loved him. I loved the idea of him, the excitement, the validation, the way he made me feel young and desirable again, but I never actually loved him." "And me?" Her eyes filled with tears for the first time since I'd known about the affair. "I did love you. Not the way you deserved, Maybe not enough to keep me from making the worst mistake of my life. But I did love you. Past tense. Present tense, I still do. I felt something twist in my chest, an old pain trying to resurface. But I'd spent weeks building walls around my heart, and they held firm. It doesn't matter now, I said. It could. We could start over, go to counseling, rebuild what we had. No. The finality in my voice stopped her mid-sentence. Why not? You got your revenge. You proved your point. Isn't that enough? I stood up from the bench and looked down at her, this woman who'd shared my bed and my dreams for 8 years. Because you still don't understand what you did to me. You think this was about the intimacy, the lies, the public embarrassment. But it wasn't. Then what? You made me question everything. Every moment of happiness we shared, every plan we made together, every time you said you loved me, all of it became suspect. You poisoned 8 years of memories with 6 months of deception. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix broken trust. It doesn't restore faith. It doesn't bring back the man I was before I found out my wife was with another man in our bed while I worked late to build our future. So this is it? This is how we end? I pulled an envelope from my jacket pocket and placed it on the bench beside her. Divorce papers. I'm not asking for anything from you because there's nothing left to take. Sign them, and we can both move on. She picked up the envelope with shaking hands. What will I do? I have nothing left. You're smart. You're beautiful. You're still young enough to start over, find a real job, build a real life. Maybe learn to love yourself instead of needing constant validation from strangers on the internet. Will you ever forgive me? I looked at her one last time. Really looked at her. Memorizing the face I'd once thought I'd spend my life waking up. Beside, I already have, I said. But forgiveness isn't the same as reconciliation, and some things, once broken, can never be fixed. I walked away without looking back, leaving her alone with the sunset and the wreckage of our marriage. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. 6 months after the papers were signed, I was back in my office when Patricia buzzed me with an unexpected announcement. Mr. Devereaux, there's a woman here to see you. Says her name is Sarah Chen and she's a reporter with the Los Angeles Business Journal. I almost said no automatically. I'd been avoiding media attention since the scandal, preferring to let my work speak for itself, but something made me curious. Send her in. Sarah Chen was nothing like I'd expected. Mid-30s, professionally dressed but not trying too hard, with intelligent eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. She carried a worn leather portfolio and moved with the confidence of someone comfortable in corporate environments. Mr. Devereaux, thank you for seeing me without an appointment. What can I do for you, Miss Chen? I'm writing a piece about business leaders who've overcome personal adversity. Your story has been difficult to ignore. I gestured for her to sit. I'm not sure what story you think you're telling. The logistics consultant whose personal life exploded publicly but managed to grow his business by 40% during the same period. The man who turned private pain into professional success. My business success has nothing to do with my personal situation. Doesn't it? She opened her portfolio and pulled out a file thick with documentation. 3 major new contracts signed during the height of your media attention. The Morrison deal that everyone thought was finished after the initial delays, suddenly back on track. A reputation for absolute discretion and unshakable professionalism, even under extreme pressure. What's your point? My point is that you handled the worst period of your life with more grace and strategic thinking than most CEOs handle. Quarterly earnings calls. That's not a scandal. That's a masterclass in crisis management. I studied her carefully. And you want to write about this because I think there are lessons here for other business leaders. About maintaining focus under pressure. About turning setbacks into comebacks. About the difference between revenge and justice. Those are interesting distinctions. A lot of people would have gotten ugly, would have aired dirty laundry, played victim, let their professional reputation suffer along with their personal life. You didn't do any of that. I just focused on what I could control. Exactly. And that's what makes this interesting from a business perspective. She leaned forward slightly. What would you say to someone facing a similar situation? I thought about it for a moment. I'd say that crisis reveals character, that you can't control what people do to you, but you can control how you respond, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to let someone else's choices destroy your life. Is that what you did? I did what I had to do to move forward. She made notes in her portfolio, then looked up at me again. One more question. Any regrets? About? Any of it. The marriage, the response, the way it all played out. I turned to look out at the city skyline, thinking about Margot somewhere out there trying to rebuild her life. About Julian, who'd moved to Portland and was apparently working as a personal trainer at a local gym. About the choices we all make and the prices we all pay. I regret that it was necessary, I said, finally. I regret that people I cared about forced me to become someone I never wanted to be. But I don't regret protecting myself or expecting consequences for destructive actions. That's a measured response. It's an honest one. She closed her portfolio and stood up. Thank you for your time, Mr. Devereaux. The article should run next month. Ms. Chen, I called as she reached the door. Off the record, why this story? Why now? She turned back with a slight smile. Because I think people need to see that surviving betrayal doesn't require becoming bitter, that you can defend yourself without losing yourself, that sometimes the strongest response to being torn down is simply refusing to stay down. After she left, I returned to my work with renewed focus. Outside my windows, LA continued its endless sprawl of ambition and dreams, success and failure, love and loss. Somewhere in that maze of possibility, I was building something new. Not a replacement for what I'd lost, but something entirely different. Something that belonged only to me. The past was finished. The future was just beginning. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough. Them on social media. Teaching suits you, I said, and meant it. I have a real life now. Real friends who know me, not my brand. A small apartment I can actually afford. Students who challenge me to be better. She paused. I'm dating someone. A history teacher at my school. He's kind, honest, completely unimpressive on Instagram. I'm happy for you. Are you? Really? I considered the question seriously. Yes, I am. I thought you'd want me to suffer forever. I wanted you to understand consequences. There's a difference. We sat quietly for a moment. Through my windows, the city hummed with its usual energy, millions of people pursuing their dreams, making their mistakes, learning their lessons. Can I ask you something? She said. Go ahead. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd just talked to you instead? If I'd told you I was unhappy, that I felt invisible, that I missed feeling wanted? Every marriage has problems, Margot. The difference is how you handle them. Some people work to fix things, others just burn everything down and walk away. I was a coward. Yes, you were, but you weren't. Even when I gave you every reason to be cruel, you never crossed lines you couldn't come back from. You could have destroyed me completely, but you didn't. I thought about the folders full of evidence I'd never used, the nuclear options I'd never deployed. Revenge was never the goal. Justice was. I hope someday I can be half as strong as you were during all of that. You don't need to be strong like me. You need to be strong like you. She stood up and walked to the door, then turned back one final time. For what it's worth, Elias, I really did love you. Not well, not faithfully, not enough, but I did love you. I know, I said. and that's what made it hurt so much. After she left, I returned to my spreadsheets, but my mind wandered to the strange mathematics of forgiveness. How some betrayals could be calculated, measured, balanced against corresponding consequences. How others lived forever in the spaces between what was and what might have been. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen, the reporter who'd become first a professional contact, then a friend, and recently something more. Dinner tonight? I found a new place that serves terrible wine and perfect pasta. I smiled and typed back, "Sounds ideal." Outside my office windows, Los Angeles glittered with promise and possibility. Somewhere in the city, Julian was probably teaching a spin class or selling insurance or finding his own version of redemption. Margot was grading papers and planning lessons and learning what it meant to love without conditions. And I was here, in the life I'd rebuilt from scratch, surrounded by work that mattered and people who chose to stay. It wasn't the ending I'd planned when I first put on my wedding ring 8 years ago, but it was better than the ending I'd feared when I received that 22-word text message. Some stories don't have happy endings. Some don't have sad ones. Some just have true ones, messy, complicated, imperfect truths that teach us who we really are when everything else falls away. I closed my laptop and reached for my coat. Sarah was waiting, and the terrible wine wasn't going to drink itself. The past was finished, the future was calling, and for the first time in a very long time, I was eager to answer,